what really set the tone was Japhet Tanganga's challenge. I think it was on Raheem Sterling within like the first minute or two. He absolutely crunched into him. And I think from that moment, it just set the tone, not only for the fans who were like, oh, all right, we're trying today. Fantastic. This is what the Nuno Espirito Santo Spurs is all about. But it also set the tone for the other players on the pitch, because then they all started to slam into these challenges. And it was awesome. It was. I'd honestly say, I think I said this to one of the other journos. I said, it's probably the most entertaining Tottenham game I can remember covering since probably the win at Old Trafford in Mourinho's second season, wasn't it? It was first full season. That's probably the last time I enjoyed a match as much, because Spurs have had, recent home victories against Man City, and while there's been some very clever tactics on display, while defending's been superb, there's still been that element of, Spurs kind of snatched it on the day. They kind of snatched the points, they nicked it. That just wasn't the case on Sunday. They deserved the win. They were very, very good, and to be honest, with a little bit better work in the final third, could have won it more comfortably. Man City were really nullified by the way Spurs played. One shot on goal, pretty much. Sorry, one shot to save for Hugo Lloris, which was the Kevin De Bruyne kind of quite tame effort. It wasn't the hardest shot for him to deal with in the world, and it just kind of restricted them to that. And it was really, really good. I mean, I'm going to talk about Nuno in a minute, so I'm not going to go too much into that. Let's start with some of the players just who really stood out. I mean, I mentioned him straight from the off. Japhet Tanganga was incredible. Nuno Espirito Santo called him huge. He said he doesn't, because he really doesn't pick out individuals, and he said, I don't do that, but he was huge today. And I'm intrigued to see now kind of what happens with Japhet, because obviously, anyone that watches this or reads my stuff, I only did a really nice kind of interview I enjoyed with Japhet a couple of weeks back where he kind of spelled out his hope for the season and everything. And up to a week ago, Japhet was heading out on loan. It was likely that was going to be the case. But I actually think, and from everything I'm hearing, he was so good on Sunday, such an incredible level of performance, that I think he's actually changed his kind of path for the season ahead. And I think at the moment, it's kind of his spot to lose, which is an incredible turnaround for him. And with Japhet, it's all about keeping fit. I think that would be the main thing for him. But listen to me call him Japhet like we're best mates or something. But yeah, he was fantastic on the day. He had two very different attacking threats to deal with in Jack Grealish and Raheem Sterling. One in Grealish that's all kind of guile, creativity, but can also dribble. And then you've got Sterling with the pace and the nimbleness and the agility to suddenly switch and turn and whenever he wants. And, I saw someone had changed his Wikipedia entry, Japhet Tanganga, to something like, it had all his normal stuff, and he has two sons, Jack Grealish and Raheem Sterling. And it's what? But it was kind of I guess it just showed how in control he was. And what is he, 22 years old? It was an incredible performance from him, and we've kind of seen this, haven't we? Especially in the big games. I think he really is a big game player. He made his debut against Liverpool. I'm pretty sure he had a really good game against City before as well. Can't remember if it was in the league or what it was in, but he was very good in that as well, I seem to remember. But he was just, I'd say faultless. I'd actually go as far to say he was probably faultless. I gave him a 9 in my player ratings, and the next day I kind of thought he probably deserved a 10, because I was trying to think if there was anything he actually did wrong. It was superb, absolutely superb. And why I say I think, he's carved out his own path now is because Nuno likes to do, yes, I'm going to call him first name as well. Nuno likes this defensive fullback, one attacking fullback, which is similar to Mourinho in that respect. And he likes, especially with someone like Tanganga, he can tuck in to make a 3, which we know, especially in Wolves' best years in the Premier League, was what he preferred, was a back 3. So having a right back that can tuck in to make a back 3 to let's say Reguilon bomb on, it's really set up for him to take that shirt and keep it. I think Matt Doherty will, you'd imagine will play in games where you need someone that's more attacking, like the European games, like the Cup games, and potentially some games where they're not playing. Not going to play Man City every week and need to be pinned back at times. But no, 탕강가 was superb, and he had that lovely moment where he came off with whatever it was for Doherty, about 5 minutes, maybe a little bit more of normal time to go. And he went off the far side of the pitch. So when he came off, he got to do this kind of half lap of honour with the Spurs fans all singing, Japhet 탕강가, he's one of our own, and just applauding him all the way around. It was a lovely, lovely moment for him. It was so nice. It's such a shame. It really is. I mean, as we're on it, let's talk about transfers. Let's get into all of that. 2 weeks to the deadline. Paratici was at the game again. It was quite funny, actually, because of COVID guidelines and regulations. Anyone that is in and around the dressing room, I think it's called the red zone. I think that's where it's called at football grounds in the Premier League. If you're in that, you then have to sit within that group, essentially, because then you can't go away and mix with other people and come back to the red zone, if you see what I mean. So we've got this funny thing at the moment of the managing director of football, Fabio Paratici, and the technical performance director, Steve Hitchens, sitting in the dugout in the row behind Nuno Espirito Santo and the coaches, and they are vocal. You can see them shouting at the every decision, standing up and giving pep some when he was complaining as well. And at the final whistle, Paratici did that biggest thumping kind of fist pump thing, and Hitchin turned around and was like, whoa! It was like proper kind of, it was real fan stuff. It was like, it was pretty good, actually. It was like lovely to see the passion, and clearly I think there's just a delight for the whole regime, this new regime at Tottenham, and the first match beating the champions. It must be such a release. It's quite funny. Dig out the videos on Twitter. They're very funny. But Paratici on his phone, again, before the match, as he always is. Not during, but before he certainly was. And now's essentially Paratici time. We used to have Frankie Fridays back in the day with Frank Arneson, didn't we? And now it's very much Paratici time. And the good thing, I would say, you've heard me speak about this spider web of transfers that Paratici does, where he negotiates with up to 10 players for every position, which is absolute carnage and a nightmare for us as reporters and fans to kind of pick the bones out of and who actually is the eventual target. But what it does do, the plus side, is that now when you get to this kind of crunch time with the 2 weeks left, when decisions are made, okay, we are going for that person, or money comes in from an outgoing transfer, the deals are at such a stage you can just say, right, okay, that just needs that finishing touch, that just needs that extra million that they're asking for, and we go for that. The player's already sorted, the player wants to come, terms agreed, whatever, bang. And it'll be really interesting to see now kind of which of those ones that we know that they've been negotiating for then come to be. Because, I understand that they want another centre-back. They certainly did want another right-back. Whether Tanganga's performance makes them think twice about that, and I think it might. They want another attacking midfielder and they want a striker. The attacking midfielder may be dependent on people going. Like I say, I think they've got a nice kind of balance of wingers right now, whether they just need that, a Lo Celso and Undombele, maybe someone that just plays a little bit further than them. They're both players that can play a bit deeper, maybe another number 10 type, maybe more of an Eriksen type kind of thing, We'll see, but I'm really intrigued to see kind of, of course they'll have to replace anyone unexpected that leaves, they'll have to replace them in that position as well. But yeah, no, I'm intrigued to see kind of now which ones go over the line, because you look at someone like Takehiro Tomiyasu, who I say that, do they think twice about a right back because of 탕강가? But then you look at someone like Tomiyasu, and actually he can cover that right back and centre back, a bit like 탕강가. So does he then, for what will probably only be around £20 million, something like that, maybe it's slightly more of add-ons and all that sort of stuff, but does he become a player who is young, learning, and actually you can develop in either role you want to? There's Nikola Milenkovic, who, I've been saying for, almost a year that Spurs have been looking at him. Maybe not as long as a year, but they certainly have been looking at him for a long time. And he's on his last year of his contract. I think he's only something like £17 million, maybe less. And he's got a little bit of leadership they're looking for as well. He's been given the armbands a few times on Fiorentina. We know they're talking to Fiorentina a lot at the moment because they've also been talking about Dusan Vlahovic. They really like Vlahovic. Paratici really likes him. The problem right now is Atletico Madrid. They also really like him. And then it comes a case of, trying to convince the player, I suppose, where he's going to get the most game time. With Spurs, you'd have to change the system. I was told that if Spurs sign another striker, which is the aim, it would be one to play with Harry Kane, and then Espirito Santo would go more to the two up front that he played at Porto, obviously with less success because obviously the players weren't the players he'd have available at Tottenham, with no disrespect to Porto because they are obviously a very successful club. But yeah, I'm really intrigued to see what happens there. Obviously, Lautaro Martinez was one that I'm not going to go into all of that again with Inter Milan, but essentially, in short, Spurs thought they were kind of coming towards an agreement in principle for him. Then Lukaku, Chelsea came in and blew them out of the water essentially with a huge, almost £100 million bid for Lukaku. And then obviously Inter look at that and say, we can't lose both, and we're getting way more for Lukaku. We're selling Hakimi as well, went to PSG. Do we also need to sell our other star striker? I wouldn't say that door's entirely closed because who knows, the actually real depth and detail of how financially stuffed Inter are, and whether they just decide in the final weeks that we're just going to have to let him go, and then you bring in some cheaper striker alternatives. But Spurs currently, the feeling is that Vlahovic is a bit more likely than a Martinez, but then you've also got the added threat of Atletico Madrid. And like I say, with the way Paratici works, there will be other strikers that we won't even be aware of that you can suddenly turn to quite quickly. If that's the case, I mean, look at others. You look at Damsgaard, spoke about that attacking midfielder. He's one that I've said earlier in the window they could come back for at the end of the window. Noni Madueke used to be at Spurs, young player, 19-year-old who's doing very well at PSV. He's a player that Spurs could have a look at again. I don't know whether it'd be quite difficult to get him away. I think PSV are quite intent on trying to keep him in this window. He is only young. But yeah, I think it's really interesting to see kind of who comes in these 2 weeks and which of those they pull the trigger on, which other ones will come into the frame. Because obviously Romero was a terrific signing. Gil looks to be a fantastic prospect. Got to watch him in the final of the Olympics, and he was probably one of the best players of the match. And Galini, is hopefully the successor for Lloris when Lloris decides, or the club decides, that Lloris's time is done. It's quite interesting to see what's happened with Lloris. I think, there's been a lot of talking about players and how they're reacting to their futures and stuff like that. Have a look at Hugo Lloris. Hugo Lloris, as it stands, has not been offered a new contract by Tottenham. I know there was talk of looking to do it, but from what he seems to be saying, it doesn't look like it's forthcoming at the moment. He's got 12 months left. He's just been absolutely, utterly, like Lloris always is, absolutely stoic, doing what he's got to do, being a leader, and has been, and I'm not saying anyone else, I'm not talking about any other players, I'm not genuinely not saying that, I'm just purely saying about Lloris. He just gets on with it. He came back from the Euros and he cracked on. There was no worry, there was no, public, I'm really upset I haven't been given another contract, anything like this. He's just cracked on, and again was a kind of a very solid presence at the back on Sunday, and it'd be interesting to see kind of what happens with him this season. And he had a very good season, I felt, last year, very consistent, one of the few kind of consistent players at Tottenham. And if he has a big season, I'd be interested to see what happens with the future, because he is a player who, he wants to go to France eventually, back to France. There's been talk of maybe an MLS move, but, he loves the club. He does. So, yeah, sorry. Bit of a tangent there. But, yeah, let's see who comes in. I've still got to get players out the door. Serge Aurier, obviously, hasn't been included in the Europa League squad, and he wants out. Spurs want him out, so I'd be stunned if that doesn't happen. Moussa Sissoko, I think Spurs would like him to go, and I don't think there's been the interest that they maybe hoped for him, but we have to keep an eye on that situation as well. Tanguy Ndombele. I got told today, was it today or yesterday on Twitter by someone, I got told by one person that I'm always too nice to Tanguy and I give him excuses when he doesn't deserve it. And I got told literally probably about 5 minutes later by someone that you're a Tongi hater. And it's a bit like, whoa, if anyone knows me, I maybe do edge slightly towards the former. I love Tongi Undombele, the way he plays. A bit like my Lamela passion was that I love watching players who take risks, who do wonderful things with the football. And I'd say Undombele is even more so that than Lamela. He's so naturally gifted. He could be one of the best players in the world, but ultimately Tongi Undombele has to want that to happen, and he has to listen to what he's being told to do to make that happen. And, you know, you can't get to this stage where you've had Mourinho, Mason, and now Espirito Santo of all kind of sometimes more than hinted that he's just not giving them what they want. It was earlier days with Poch before Poch went. But, and this was also something we heard from previous coaches. Is it Bruno Genesis? I can't remember his name, the Lyon coach. And other youth coaches have all said the same thing. There's this kind of feeling with him that he just goes through these cycles of really knuckling down, working really hard, playing consistently well, then perhaps, I don't know, maybe believing his own hype, and then it starts to unravel a bit, and then they start the process again. And I just hope for him, because, he's just become a dad. It's been quite a summer for him, first-time father. But just to hear a new manager saying already, he's not in the right moment to play competitive football, and he's been left out of the Europa Conference League squad for these 2 playoff matches. Whether he goes, certainly Spurs at the start of the summer had no intention of letting him go. And I still would be surprised if anyone would offer the kind of money that would tempt them. He's a club record signing. It was upwards of £60 million. I'd be surprised at that. And I still do think there's this belief that if someone can just shake him, give him a bit of a wake-up call, he could be one of the best. He's that good. He's an incredible player. And he's still so young. Was he 23, 24 maybe now? I think he might be 24. He's got everything about his game, and he even showed under Mourinho, despite having clear differences with Mourinho, he got himself into the fittest possible state he could be in. He had a real consistent run through the bulk of the season, playing very well. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, the Dele Alli role that I've been praising Dele Alli for, I actually think fits on Dembele like a glove, because it's slightly, if he were to tweak it slightly, so rather than a midfield 3 across, it was a 2 with 1 in front. On Dembele, without that little bit of defensive pressure, because Skip and Højbjerg are taking that on, it could be sensational. He would have to work hard, because every player in a Nuno Espirito Santo team, like a Mourinho team, like even more so a Pochettino team, has to work hard. I just hope they sort it out, because I'm so disappointed. This smiling face that you've had because of Sunday's result will not be there if Tongi Undombele goes. I know he gets a lot of jibes from the fans. They take the mickey out a lot of things that, let's be honest, aren't true. Some people saying he's fat and all that. He's not. He's absolutely not. There's a photo of him at the media stuff the other day where he did the new kits, when you see him on the Sky and they're doing all the turn to camera stuff for your line-up shots. He's actually pretty trim, far from it. But he clearly just maybe doesn't knuckling down. He's just not doing something that Espirito Santo wants. Otherwise, he'd be in the squad. And it's so disappointing. Let's see who goes out. Alfie Whiteman's headed out. He's gone to Degerfors, I think it's pronounced maybe, in Sweden, which some people might be like, huh? But actually, if you're a goalkeeper at that level, whatever your first loan move, as long as you're going to play, it's a good one. Brandon Austin went to, was it Viborg in Denmark, I remember, is his first one. Then went to Orlando City in MLS. Whatever game time you get is fantastic for you. And this is his turn now. He gets to go off and do that. Brandon Austin's come back in. He'll be the 3rd keeper by the looks of it, behind Galini and Lloris. England under-21 international. I don't know whether they'll bring in another experienced goalkeeper. I'd be surprised. You'd think Austin now will get the shot, will get the chance. It's going to be a busy few weeks. It really is. And obviously we've got this week the Europa Conference League game. No Undombele or Aurier. Like I said, Kane is in the squad. You've got Pat Scotsy, Jack Clark, Cameron Carter-Vickers are all in there as well. And it's Pacos de Ferreira, Portuguese side. The stadium only holds 9,000 people, which is going to take me a little bit back to my kind of League 2 non-league routes, which will be interesting. I'm hopefully going along, I'm doing a test not long after I record this video, which will pretty much define whether I get to go. Not a written test or anything, an actual, one of these PCR tests. And if that's all good, then I shall head over to Portugal, which will be the first time I've been out of the country in a long, long time. And then we've got Wolves on Sunday. So it's just non-stop now. Now we're into this really busy 2 weeks where there's transfer stuff and matches galore all happening within a few days of each other. So, let's see how it goes. I might look a little bit more knackered if I don't already when I do the next one of these. But no, apologies for the length between this video and the last one. But obviously, I want to have a little bit of time off. And it was very nice. And thank you to everyone that wished me a happy birthday. I had my birthday last week, which was lovely as well. But yeah. Back to the grindstone, back to Tottenham Hotspur, and it's been very enjoyable so far, and I hope it continues on Thursday night. I should, all going well with my test, be able to watch open training, and I might even actually be at an in-the-face press conference if they let me in the room. Otherwise, I'm just going to have to shout through at the open door, no, can I ask a question? Otherwise, I'm going to have to do it over Zoom, sitting in a room next to him, which will be weird, but there you go. It's the way things are now. And yeah, so I'm going to head off now. Keep an eye on transfer stuff. Like I say, I think we'll see some more new names come out of the woodwork as well in the days ahead. There will be more players that Paratici will have his eye on. Many from Serie A, I'm sure. But yeah, let's see what happens now with Nuno. I think he's had a really solid foundation he's built. Going back to Molineux will be a kind of an emotional thing for him. And the game's just come thick and fast. But I shall be taking you through it all. Don't worry. I'll be here with you, holding your hand across the medium of YouTube. So yeah, as always, look after yourselves, stay healthy, stay safe, and I shall catch you later. Goodbye.